the most closed geography in the world. A labyrinth where the internet cannot reach, where freedoms are surrendered to the regime and bans cover every corner. A giant open-air prison where watching movies, reading books, traveling, or even having the wrong haircut is considered a crime. Yet, despite all these prohibitions, despite heavy economic sanctions lasting for decades, and despite being completely isolated from the outside world, it is an exceptional system that still stands. From the outside, this country looks like it has collapsed. Yet today, it is still constructing new buildings, developing nuclear warheads, and launching satellites. Moreover, it challenges the world's superpower America. So where does this courage come from? How is this self-confidence fed? Where is the economic power found for such ambitious moves? How does North Korea, perhaps the world's only true dictatorship, make money? As the calendars marked the end of the 1970s, a silent structure was born in Pyongyang that no one was aware of. Room 39. Although it looked like an ordinary office on paper, behind the scenes, it would become the darkest and most strategic mechanism of the North Korean regime. The mission of this structure, established by the orders of the founding leader Kim Il-sung, was actually very simple: to keep the dynasty's vault full no matter what. Did the international world slam its doors in their faces? Then they would enter through the chimney. Room 39 was essentially a crime syndicate established with state seriousness to breach the sanctions trying to suffocate the regime. This office, defined as a black box by intelligence services, is a mystery box whose exact location and staff remain unknown even today. All we know is that this structure, inherited from grandfather to grandson, to Kim Jong-un, is the brain of North Korea's shadow economy. Operating like clockwork for nearly 50 years, this system resembles a global mafia cartel more than a state. From counterfeit dollars to drugs, from arms smuggling to cyber heists, whatever is illegal is in Room 39's portfolio. When we look from the outside and ask, how does this country not go bankrupt? The answer lies in the dark traffic of billions of dollars managed by this office. However, let us not fall into a misconception. These billions are spent not for the welfare of the people, but for the survival of the regime. Every penny earned goes either to the nuclear program or to buy the loyalty of the elites. While the people struggle to survive in the streets, missiles launched into the sky are financed by this black money. So where exactly does the water for this mill come from? Let's take a closer look at the gears of this dark wheel. At the top of the list is the regime's oldest and bloodiest revenue stream: the arms trade. Since the Cold War, North Korea has been the most loyal supplier to troubled regions. Embargoes, bans, or ethical rules mean nothing to them. When they earned billions of dollars by secretly selling missiles to Tehran during the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s, they discovered how profitable this business was. And they haven't stopped since. Although the UN Security Council strictly banned North Korea from exporting arms in 2006, this ban was just a detail, on paper, for the regime. North Korea wove such a complex web through shell companies in countries like China, Malaysia, and Singapore that tracking shipments became impossible. Sometimes via cargo planes with diplomatic immunity, sometimes via ghost ships with changed flags, tons of ammunition were distributed to the world. It was no coincidence that a plane in Thailand in 2009 claimed to be carrying oil drilling equipment, was found to contain 35 tons of war material, or that 24,000 rocket launchers were found hidden under boxes of water pumps on a ship going to Egypt. However, we saw the most current and frightening dimension of this trade recently, at the beginning of 2024, when the wreckage of a Russian missile that hit a building in Kharkiv, Ukraine, was examined. Experts encountered a shocking detail. The serial numbers on the missile were written not in the Cyrillic alphabet, but in the Korean alphabet. This was proof that North Korea was directly involved in the Ukraine war. Intelligence reports confirmed that North Korea sent 21,000 containers full of ammunition to Russia by train. This meant more than 300,000 tons of deadly cargo. North Korean weapons may not be as smart as their Western rivals, but they are cheap, durable, and fully compatible with Soviet systems. This makes them indispensable in long wars of attrition. Then there is the showcase part of the business: the nuclear threat. The number of nuclear weapons in North Korea may seem small compared to America or Russia. But the issue is not the number, but the perception of madness it creates. A dictator holding a missile with a range of 13,000 kilometers that can hit any point on the American continent turns all the world's defense equations upside down. Think about it, the Hwasong-17 missile, which can carry a 1.5-ton nuclear warhead, can create an explosion exactly 15 times more powerful than the bomb that leveled Hiroshima. Moreover, these missiles do not stand in fixed silos. They constantly change location in the forests with massive vehicles, making them almost impossible to hit. For Kim Jong-un, these missiles are not a tool of war. They are a ticket to survival. This is the only valid card that allows him to sit at the world table. Another dirty pillar of the shadow economy is the drug empire. State-sponsored drug production may sound like a dystopian movie script, but in North Korea, it is state policy. In the 1970s, the regime, unable to pay its foreign debts, ordered its diplomats to find your own foreign currency. The solution was smuggling drugs in diplomatic bags. First, opium fields were established, and heroin was produced. However, in the 90s, the regime switched to a product with high added value, methamphetamine. The purity of methamphetamine produced by the best chemical engineers in state laboratories in North Korea reached 98%. This quality made even international drug cartels' mouths water. At one time, 40% of the East Asian drug market was under Pyongyang's control. In fact, this substance, known as ice, domestically, became so widespread that it began to be used as medicine or a painkiller among the people. While poisoning the outside world, they also made their own people addicts. But perhaps most surprisingly, the speed at which this old-fashioned regime adapted to the digital age. Cyber heists. A regime that bans the internet for its own people and installs spyware on smartphones has turned the virtual world into a massive bank robbery scene. Hacker groups known by names like Lazarus, working directly under the army, are among the most capable and ruthless cyber armies in the world. These hackers are selected from among mathematical geniuses at a young age, sent abroad for the best education and write code for a single purpose, to bring money to the regime. In 2016, they tried to steal $1 billion from the Central Bank of Bangladesh, settling for $81 million due to a typo. It is claimed that in early 2025, they evaporated $1.5 billion from a single crypto exchange within hours. Cryptocurrencies are a godsend for North Korea. Hard to track, no borders, no embargoes. Stolen Bitcoin and Ethereum are converted into clean money through complex laundering methods and added to the nuclear program's budget. So the money stolen from your digital wallet today can become the fuel for a ballistic missile tomorrow. And of course, the legend of the super dollar. North Korea has turned counterfeiting into an art form. The fake $100 bills they print are so flawless that everything from the texture of the paper to the chemistry of the ink on it is identical to the real thing. Even the American central bank struggles to detect these super dollars. Room 39 distributes these fake bills to the world via diplomatic couriers, mixing and laundering them with real money. The regime is literally attacking the American economy with its own weapon. So where's all this money spent? Just on weapons? No. In North Korea, luxury is a tool for survival. In the gray and dim streets of the capital Pyongyang, you can see the latest model black Mercedes and armored Lexus cars gliding by. The United Nations banned the sale of luxury goods to North Korea, but Kim Jong-un's cellar is never without the most expensive French cognacs, and his wrist is never without million-dollar Swiss watches. These products, brought into the country via China by changing labels, are used to buy the generals and bureaucrats in the upper echelons of the regime. In a country where the people are disciplined with hunger, this luxury life offered to the elites is the guarantee of loyalty. In dictatorships, the way to protect the throne is to keep the power circle around you happy, and Kim Jong-un plays this rule very well. The most oppressed part of the system keeping this wheel turning are the modern slaves. North Korea does not just export coal or weapons. It exports its own people. There are tens of thousands of North Korean workers cutting trees in the freezing forests of Russia, building skyscrapers in the scorching heat of Qatar, and sewing textiles in dark workshops in China. These people do not work of their own free will. They are selected and sent by the state. Their passports are confiscated, they live and sleep in places like concentration camps, and contact with the outside world is forbidden. They are worked for 14 to 16 hours a day, and 80 to 90% of the salary they earn is transferred directly to the North Korean state, that is, to the vault of room 39. What happens if they try to escape? The families they left behind in North Korea are thrown into prison or punished. Thanks to this terrible hostage-taking system, the regime earns hundreds of millions of dollars in clean cash every year. It sells the sweat and freedom of its own citizens as foreign currency. To get all these dark revenues into the system, shell companies come into play. A restaurant in Malaysia, a shipping company in Singapore, or a finance office in Hong Kong, these businesses, which look legitimate on paper, are actually stations where money is laundered and transferred to North Korea. Even though the regime has been kicked out of the SWIFT banking system, it continues to swim in global finance thanks to these back doors. This is the big picture facing us. Weapons, drugs, cyber piracy, counterfeiting, and modern slavery. North Korea has opened a living space for itself by using all the loopholes of international law and all the gray areas of the global system like a virus. The fact that giants like China and Russia turn a blind eye to this naughty child for strategic reasons makes it easier for the wheel to turn. The dark empire managed by Room 39 manages to keep a dynasty standing. The regime does not fall. Missiles continue to fly. Leaders live in palaces. But who pays the price? 25 million people disconnected from the world. Their minds disciplined by propaganda. Their stomachs by hunger, ruled by fear. This story is not just about a country's economy. This is a tragedy created by silence and ignorance. While we watch this distant and strange country from our warm homes on our phones, the darkness inside that closed box deepens every day. And at the end of the day, we have to ask this question. The winner of this perfectly functioning crime machine is clear. The Kim dynasty. But who is the loser? Is it only the North Korean people? Or is it our humanity that has become accustomed to living as if nothing is happening while there is a concentration camp right next door?